Hello everybody, I'm Bertie from Eurogamer. I hope you're having a good day at EGX 2015. Welcome to the final session of the day. Before I introduce the people talking, we will have time for questions at the end, so now's a good time to think of that question, and there's a microphone here, and that's where you can ask from. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Total War Arena, and here to talk about it, Jan and James from Creative Assembly.
Right, hello. And hello everybody on the internet watching this. Obviously we're going to talk about Total War Arena. We're going to look a little bit into where this whole game came from, what the idea came from, and then we are going to kind of look at the evolution of the game to where we're now. But before we do that, I want to show you a little video.
Peggy 16.
Sega.
Okay, that was some epic bass. On the screen, I'm going to be showing some screenshots from the game, as well as some concept art that kind of gives you an impression. We're going to do a gameplay session live on the live game as it is being played right now with real players after the short talk. And as mentioned at the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. So the first question really is, what is Arena? It's what you just saw, obviously. It's a 10 versus 10 multiplayer, online, real-time strategy game. Each player plays 3 units, and it's very much about playing together as a team of 10 people to try to conquer your enemy's base. It's definitely Total War in the sense that you're very familiar with controlling your units. Units are big, battles are epic, and it's very much historical based. It's one of the key pillars of Total War, of historical Total War, which we fall into. And we've based all our designs on history, but we've taken slight more liberties in accuracy than in our normal titles, because this game is obviously more action-oriented, more fast-paced, and therefore needs to be a little bit more edgy, cool, etc. It's not just a game of strategy, it's also a game of skill. Much more than in previous Total War games, your units are extremely reactive. They move faster, the battle evolves faster, and engagements are resolved faster. It's all about tactics on a very small level, and at the same time, strategy as team play together with 10 players in one team. The direct combat is so detailed that you can really micro your units, you can really show off your skill, you can position your units, then strike, and immediately see the results of your actions, much more so than in the big 20-unit controlled Total War games that you're used to. Now, Total War Arena came essentially as an idea from Shogun 2. We had the Avatar multiplayer campaign mode, which was very popular with our players, and essentially an entire multiplayer community was built around that. And that gave us the idea, let's do a game that is just multiplayer, because people really like it. Many iterations of ideas, concepts, and morphed concepts, and Arena was born as essentially the answer to the need for a multiplayer game. We obviously had to look at the battle gameplay in detail, make sure that everything is absolutely optimized for multiplayer, that it is as fast-paced, as visceral as we wanted it to be. And so there were many changes that we did. We had a new control scheme, we changed the way the camera works, and the reactivity of the units, how the men interact with each other on a very micro little detail, which has a very big impact on how the game plays. It's much more fluid, much more direct. Additionally, for multiplayer, one thing that we really had to look at, let me go back, oh, well, why not? What we really had to look at is the network connectivity. When you have small multiplayer games, like usually is the case, up to 4 versus 4 in traditional Total War, generally the people who play together know each other, they've pre-arranged a match, and they're probably in geographical proximity. However, with Total War Arena, people are really all over the globe, and some people might have good connections, some might have bad connections. And in order to mitigate that in a peer-to-peer environment, we had to find a technological solution to make sure that when one person was lagging, not everybody else was lagging. For that, we introduced a relay server, which is kind of like a proxy server that is based in a region somewhere between these players, and it sends all the commands across in order to ensure that if one person is lagging behind, the other people can just continue playing, and the only person affected is the guy who's lagging. Another thing that we, for example, had to address was something called pull-through. It was something that in the multiplayer community was long known as, well, either a tactic or an exploit, depending on how you look at it. And it meant that if you repeatedly clicked move order behind an enemy unit, you could just pull your unit through that unit and basically break through a line of enemy soldiers in order to get to whatever was behind them, maybe the artillery. Many multiplayer battles that were organized by the players, many competitions basically banned this as a house rule. And so we looked at that and took it upon ourselves to make sure that this is something that doesn't work in Total War Arena. It's a lot of work because it had a lot to do with the fine mechanics of battle gameplay, but in the end, we did fix it, much to the joy of our players. Now, many people ask us, why is it 10 versus 10, and why do you only control 3 units? Isn't Total War about controlling loads of units? Well, yes and no. Total War is about epic battles, and we have epic battles. We have 10 players with 3 units each on each side. So essentially, each battle that we have has a very large number of units and men on the battlefield, actually more than in traditional Total War games. However, with 10 players, you end up in a situation where each player has the feeling that he can shine, that he can basically be a hero and win. But at the same time, what you don't get is if one player is having a bad day or is new to the game, that he's going to drag down the entire team. That prevents a lot of player toxicity that we can see in many other games, where we have much smaller teams and people get really angry at each other because they start blaming each other for destroying the match or losing. Also, 10 versus 10 is a number where you can still understand what is your team doing. It's not overwhelming, but at the same time, it's strategically interesting. 3 units, lastly, is something that we feel is the exact right amount of units in order to have tactical gameplay where you and your own positioning has a very strong impact. And at the same time, it's something where you can still control the units. When you have a large battle with 20 units, it's impossible for you to control all of them. They need some AI, they need some automation, and to some people, it's also quite intimidating. So we went with 3 units because like that, your second-to-second gameplay is very much informed by your micro actions, your positioning, your strategic, your immediate attacks, defenses, etc. So that basically you always have something to do without being overwhelmed. One thing that we are very proud of and that we find is very important for us in our development as well is to talk to the community. We decided to make a free-to-play game because we want to create this game as a service. It's a service that is going to run for a very long time, hopefully. And as a free-to-play game, it needs players. Otherwise, the game is going to die out, and that wouldn't be good. But we also know that in order to have players, we need to make sure that our players love the game. And they don't want to just play it for 10 hours, but that they want to play it for 6 months, a year, and hopefully even longer. So what we're doing at the moment is we've just left closed alpha phase, in which we learned a lot from our players. We learned about the balancing. We learned about game mechanics. We learned about the competitive gameplay. Here you can see a picture. We did an event at the ESL studios in Cologne, where we pitted 10 versus 10 of our most engaged players against each other to simply see how would this work in a competitive environment. And they loved it. Our viewers loved it, and we really enjoyed that experience as well. So one thing that we're really doing is we are taking the community involvement that we've always traditionally had with Total War Games to a higher level. All our devs are regularly on the forums. We have a chat channel with our our players that give us the most useful feedback, and therefore we really react to what they say, and that's something the players feel and have repeatedly fed back to us that they really appreciate. So basically, the next question, of course, is where are we at? We just entered closed beta yesterday. We have two factions, had two factions before, the Romans and the Greeks. We've now introduced a third faction, the Barbarians, with a new commander, which plays totally differently. So basically, the Romans are heavy infantry. They are slow. They are very defensive. They're kind of the battlefield engineers, and the Greeks are kind of the flexible, somewhere in the middle. They have cavalry. They can move fast. And the Barbarians, they're really hard-hitting, light-armored. They want to hit and run away. They don't want to stay in combat. But when they hit hard. So that's something that was just introduced as this trinity that we didn't have before, which again made the game completely different. And we and the players are relearning the strategies of the game, which makes it really exciting for us. With closed beta as well, we're now at a stage where we can promise our players that we're not going to reset their accounts anymore. There will be no wipes. Players who join now will be able to continue playing until the end of days with their accounts intact and continued. That obviously went down very well with our players, and it's something that we feel is really important to making sure that the players who have been giving us all this feedback feel sufficiently rewarded. Now, obviously, we want to go further from this. We're not done. We will never be done. This is an endless development, hopefully. And we are going to look at introducing more commanders. Currently, we're looking at producing approximately one commander every 2 months. We want to introduce more maps. We currently have 5. We're going to introduce more in the near future. We want to introduce additional factions as well. And that doesn't mean just that we're going to stay in ancient times and in Europe. We might develop into other time periods. We might develop into other geographical regions, other continents. We're always going to stay historical and realistic. This is a key pillar. But obviously, we can stretch that a little bit as well. So let's look at, sorry, that was a slide that I didn't expect. One commander that we want to introduce in the future as well is Vercingetorix. You can already see him in the game. Unfortunately, on this background, you can't see his cool helmet wings, but they're there. And he would be the next barbarian commander, most likely. And this is just one of the teasers of what we want to do in the future. So to end this kind of look at the overview of the game, which is really just a short overview, before we jump into the actual gameplay session with James, I want to show you a little video that introduces our closed beta patch that went live yesterday. So you get a little idea of where we are between the first video that we showed and now. Enjoy.
Peggy 16. Sega.
say what you're doing, and then you can take over. All right. So there you could get a bit of an impression of the barbarians at work, charging in, killing, and just wreaking havoc. Now, I'm going to hand over to James here, our community manager, who is going to show you a live game. We're going to play on the live server as it is, with real players out there, and hope that we don't get destroyed.
That's the plan.
Yes.
It never always works out quite as I want, but I'm joined with some of our YouTubers. So I have Lionheart, Warrior Sparta, and Alex the Rambler. So we're just partnering up now. I've gone tier 5 for this. I'm playing Scipio, kind of one of my favorite commanders. Gave got a bit of rework recently. So he's a cavalry general, but he's also very good at infantry as well. He's kind of the all-rounder. It looks like everyone in my party decided they were also going to play Romans, but maybe there'll be a few surprises in that. I have no idea what map we're going to go on, though.
No, we'll see.
It's
Well,
totally random.
basically the matchmatching takes care of getting you into a map and making sure that each team has a good balance of units, commanders, and also skill levels of the players, essentially. So, yeah, just to make sure it's fair and that each side has a good chance of winning.
Well, it's not fair when they're playing against me.
No, of course not.
But there's also some other people in our community on the other side, some people who are actually playing at EGX, Axel the Hunter. So, yeah, he probably is trying to stream snipe us. But, you know, that's fine. I can deal with that. So, Thermopylae, one of our first maps. It's had a few reworking. It's had a bit of reworking in the past, though. We've added a bit more up here. There's a watchtower here now, which will give you loads and loads of vision, probably about that much. There you go. People are saying hi to everyone in EGX. Yeah, well, I'm pinging. Well, am I pinging? No, wrong button. There we go. You can see it there. So, what am I going to do? I'm cavalry, and my commander is heavy infantry. So, he's going to hang back a little, and I'm going to scout with my cavalry and see if I can find some skirmishers. They're the easier target for my cavalry. And if I get lucky, either take out other cavalry, or if I get really, really lucky, get some rear charges, flank charges onto some heavy infantry.
Yeah, so this is the screen where you can choose where you're going to start the fight. Each team member can pick one of those slots, depending on what units they've chosen and where they want to go. And the other team does the same at the same time, but obviously you can't see that.
Capture the enemy base.
First, I'm going to do something a little different with my command unit here. My commander is always in here. Where is he? He's hiding somewhere. He is in here somewhere. And you can see these are my cavalry. So I'm going to send these guys out a little bit to try and do some scouting. So you can see the size of this map.
So you could maybe see how James was dragging his units here. That's very much like in traditional Total War games. We will have basically two control schemes. One for existing Total War players that they will find very familiar, but we've also introduced a new arena control scheme, which is basically geared at players who haven't played Total War before. So we really want to open up the game to both existing and new players.
Yes, unfortunately, I'm one of the old school Total War players, so I'm always going straight to the more traditional camera, but like I said, it's there for everyone. We've got a little bit.
Yeah, you're so conservative, James.
Well, I'm going to use barricades. It's one of the new things that have come in since the closed beta. So I'm going to kind of block off my base a little. So that's going to be difficult for the enemy to just quickly walk through. So my commander, the reason I'm keeping my commander back here is, first of all, this is the base which I want to defend. If they capture this, we will lose, and they draw first blood. So I'm just making it a little difficult for them to just walk in and capture it. My cavalry is, you know, this is my striking arm, really. These are the ones that are going to usually make first contact, and this is the guy who comes in a little bit later to maybe mop them up. So I'm just going to finish off my barricades, defend my base a little better. There we go.
So the Romans are very much heavy infantry with some cavalry, and one of their unique features is that most Roman units can actually construct things on the battlefield, because historically that's what the Romans were good at, battlefield engineering. So the other factions don't have access to that. James, playing Roman, just puts down his barricades, whereas barbarians would have trouble doing that. Ooh, that looks exciting.
He's trying to catch this cavalry now. He's got a lot of reinforcements, so no, not good. The Rambler is, though, because he's suicidal. Yeah, there you go. So he's going to die. Okay, there's an engineer unit over in the woods here, and I kind of want to have a go at that. But also they have loads of spear units here. Got to be very careful. Keeping my unit back here because I'm struggling to micro 2 units, as you do. Now, why was he in the woods? So this is an engineer unit, which also is MUNA, so it kind of fires like little crossbow bolts and so forth. Very powerful unit, but they can also put traps down. That worries me, but he was hanging around there, so... Oh, my teammate's in trouble. I need to do something.
One of the key lessons in Total War Arena is never go out alone. If you go out alone, you try to be the superhero, you're definitely going to die. Maybe one of these guys... Nope, they're playing very well. They were hiding their units there in the depression. We have a line of sight system, so you can really hide behind hills or in little ditches. That's why these units just appeared on the screen.
This is just a cavalry standoff, which, considering you have spear units, that they're marching up really, really well here. It's very difficult to do anything. Actually, I need to do something here because he's going to try and charge into the back of one of our units. Oh, he's going to charge in. So he's going to cause a lot of damage to that guy. No, I can't take that engagement. I need to wait. Meanwhile, sending unit can actually go do something. We're just getting pushed back here. This is definitely not what I wanted to happen.
No, this is not going very well, is it?
Well, we're doing well up here. We've kind of got and then this, where one of our players is going to just march into the base here.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm bringing up some infantry. They've got a lot of spears here, but they don't have much sword infantry. So I'm going to, bringing them back. Here comes
Quite often these engagements end in a base race. So one flank breaks for each side, and then it's really about who's going to get to the enemy base faster and who has defending units left behind or not.
So before I engage here, I'm going to throw my peeler into the unit. He turned his back to me, so he's going to take even more damage. And right now, I didn't see all those guys, but that's fine. I predicted this. Hit my charge there.
You're going to get surrounded now.
I am, and that's why I'm going to use O for Perseverance. So that unit now, I've lost complete control of it, but what I do have... Are you going to charge me? No, you're not. Oh, yeah, he is. Okay, that didn't go well. Let's just pretend that didn't happen. So my command unit here is engaged, and with O for Perseverance locked down, he's unorderable, but I pretty much can't be broken. So that fight is going to drag on for quite a while, and they're going to really struggle. You missed your charge. I'm going to get my revenge now.
So with his Oath of Perseverance, you can see over there on the side that his infantry unit is entirely surrounded. Normally, units would rout. They would run and die. But because he used this order, which is a special order of his commander, his unit is not going to rout, and it doesn't die. But we seem to have some network connectivity problems here. That is not good.
Always happens on the night.
On stage, obviously.
There we go. Open Perseverance. I didn't actually have it on earlier. That unit survived without me having to do it. So you can see everything's going perfectly fine, surrounded by the enemy. And my cavalry slowly engaged there. But while this is all going on,
We're capturing the enemy base.
Oh, yes.
as the voice says for us perfectly, Lionheart and... is it just Lionheart? It is just Lionheart, I believe. They're going to go for a quick cap on the enemy base. So we're holding them off as long as we can here. But as you can hear, that cap will start coming up at the top here.
That engagement, we're not going to win. But if we capture the enemies first, we win. That would be good.
And even if they finished in my units, and they have, they'll walk in, they'll find that it's a bit difficult to get in because of the barricades I put down. So I can't win with this unit cavalry here, but I can harass, and that's what I plan to do. And they're going to waste their time chasing me instead of capping the base.
We're capturing the enemy base. Increase the pressure.
I love the audio
Increase the
telling me
pressure.
that they're going to capture the enemy base.
In service to Rome.
So I'm just getting chased now. I can see my allies are coming in from up here. Hold space, and you can see where teammates are making decisions.
Cavalry forward. Cavalry on me.
As you can see, he's going to try and charge me in a second. I'm going to try and get away from this.
Cavalry forward.
Well, if you he is charging.
Yeah, well,
Well, now
you
if
know,
you go
it
to
was
your
all
friends,
part of the plan, Jan.
Yeah, obviously.
So there you go, we got one unit.
I
Slowly
would,
but
I would say
surely
these guys are
capping away.
heroes.
Well, yeah, that's if we cap a base, because if we don't, then it's not really. There's Hacksaw decided to come in and spoil our fun. We've got archers, we've got everything we need here to capture the base,
Yeah,
but
I
we
think
need to
that's
capture
gonna-
it quickly.
Yeah, gotta be faster than the enemy.
And there you go, that unit is still engaged with all of those.
So
They
the-
don't need to continue this fight, they can back off at any time, but they want me dead.
Yeah,
So they're
sometimes
just staying there.
sometimes sacrificing a unit like James did there is super important for your team to win, because you're just holding people back. You're stopping them from entering your base, you're stopping them from capturing, and that is it's very often what could bring you victory.
Well, if we hadn't lost connection to the game, which we have,
Oh no.
I think we would have won that one.
I think so too. Now, we apologize for that. Obviously that has to happen.
Please tell me we won. I did all the work. Thanks. You owe me one.
Shall we try another one, or
We
shall
can,
we risk it? We have the time.
or we can go over to questions and answers. I think we'll do that. So if anyone has any questions, there is a place to go. I don't know where that
There's a
place is.
microphone over here.
Microphone
So if
over
you have
there.
any questions, please come up to the microphone while maybe we'll get the network connectivity looked into.
Yeah, I'll ask that now.
Any questions?
It was a win.
Yay! Well done, well done.
Thank you. It's all me.
Thank you, thank you. It was all his work. No, it was good team play. That's what it was. Yes.
With the game being free to play, will there be microtransactions? And if so, what can we expect to see, and how will it affect potentially pay to win with most free to play games?
Right, yes. I mean, obviously there will be microtransactions. It is a free-to-play game, yes. But we're doing everything we can to make sure that it's not a pay-to-win game. We know that strategy games really do not lend themselves to pay-to-win, because that's anti-strategy, kind of. So what we're doing is we're, first of all, looking at what the community finds acceptable. We posted our monetization strategy for feedback with the community, and the feedback was generally very positive, and that's something we thought, hey, great, we got it right. And we just introduced microtransactions as a test since we went into closed beta yesterday, and so far, again, the feedback has been good. So that obviously doesn't tell you much about our strategy, but let me tell you quickly. What we're doing is, obviously, we're selling cosmetic items that simply change your appearance. It's always popular. We are also selling accelerated progression. So that doesn't give you any advantages in battle. It only means that if you have a lot of money and very little time, you might want to progress faster. You can spend money to progress faster, but you still have to play to progress. You can't just jump ahead. That in itself isn't always an advantage, because if you play faster, you have less experience, and you'll come up against very experienced players quite quickly. And lastly, we are also selling premium units. So these are units that are exclusive to paying players, but these units are in no way stronger or better on the battlefield than their free counterparts. In general, they are more specialized, or they allow you to access something that normally you wouldn't in terms of gameplay style. So a good example would be the Roman unit tree. Romans historically were very heavy infantry based, and they hired in auxiliary mercenaries from other cultures to fight for them, to fill the gaps So Romans would hire auxiliary cavalry and archers mostly. And that's essentially how we did it with the monetization model for the premium units for the Romans. If you want to play Roman and you want to have archers and cavalry, you're going to have to pay for it. Or you could just team up with a Greek player who has archers and cavalry, which is probably also better than the Roman paid premium counterpart. But that means you can't have it all in your own squad. So that's essentially where we're going with that in terms of monetization. And we're very confident that it's not pay to win. And if our community gives us the feedback that they feel that it's too pay to win, we're definitely going to look into that. We want to make sure that this game is exactly what the Total War community and the strategy gaming community at large finds acceptable.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Hi, do you have any plans to add other game modes that are seen in Total War battles, such as sieges or naval battles?
Right now, we definitely only have one game mode. It's one we're focusing on very much to just get it right. One of the biggest things from the community is obviously been asking for other game modes, and the first thing he said was Siege, which is what everyone else would like as well. So it's one of the things, we've got a few ideas of things we're going to try. Siege, it's one that everyone wants just to try, so maybe. But yeah, we're definitely looking at other game modes, and hopefully we'll be able to show you that at some point in the future.
Thank you.
Oh, hi.
It's too tall.
Yeah, I'm too short. Question I have is because arena is more like you're still historical, but you will go away a little. Might there be more like female commanders, maybe shown the arc or inspired?
Yes.
Cool.
So we already have 2 female units in the game whose models aren't female yet. We have Amazon Warriors as a premium unit for the Greek faction, and we have Telesilla's Argives, again from the Greek faction. Those are basically the women of Argos who defended the city against the Spartans. The Spartans were attacking the city and had already defeated the male army. And the women of Argos, led by Telesilla, stood on the city walls and were like, if you want to take the city, you have to fight against us. So the Spartans were faced with a tough choice. Either they attack the city, most likely take it, and have a shameful victory by defeating women. Or even worse, if they were defeated, that would be horrendously shameful. Or they leave. So they left. So we have those in, and we are also working on a female commander that I'm not going to reveal yet. There are actually 2 female commanders that are going to come in the near future. So definitely, yes.
Oh, that sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Basically, the question to ask is, I know you said this was like a long-term thing. You
Yes.
see it going over like several years at minimum. But in regards to kind of time period and stuff, can we expect to see in the future, let's say, an arena but of a Shogun theme, or will that be tied into one? Sorry. Or would that be kind of tied into one bigger game?
We're looking at different options here. Yes, we want to expand the time periods, but we want to make sure that it makes sense for the players and for the gameplay. So as long as technologically they're kind of compatible, yes, we could add them. So we're definitely looking at adding factions from other cultures, non-European, non-Mediterranean. We're also looking at time periods that go further back, maybe just saying the Byzantine Empire or something more medieval, European something. Maybe one day we'll even get to gunpowder, but then we'll need to figure out how can we separate those two, because we don't want ancient Greeks fighting against Napoleonic soldiers. That would not make sense to us.
Okay, thanks for that.
Thank you.
So you mentioned earlier on that you are planning to release commanders on a sort of a couple of months basis sort of thing, more commanders. You can do much the same thing with maps as well.
Well, yes, we obviously just released a new map, which is Rubicon, with a closed beta yesterday, so a lot of people are getting their teeth into that. We do have another map as well coming in the near future, and it looks like we're going through quite a few maps quite at the moment. We're throwing them out there quite quickly. Well, not quickly, right? Quick enough to give something fresh every so often. So yeah, there's going to be plenty of maps, and I'm sure they're going to be quite different from the ones we have now.
Yeah, well, we're also looking at At the moment, we only have 5 maps, which means that all players from Tier 1 to Tier 10 play on the same types of maps. Our final goal is to have enough maps so that when you progress through the game, you start out with the maps that are easy to understand, like Thermopylae, and then you progress slowly to the more complex maps that require more refined strategies and more team play to win, so that the maps match kind of the skill level that we expect the players to have. So yes, you definitely need more maps, and we have at least 2 more maps in the works at the moment, I think. One of which I think is somewhat mountain-based. So we'll have to see. We don't know exactly when that's going to come out yet.
One other question as well is, obviously 10v10 is the standard sort of size. Are you thinking about maybe doing any other differences with that? Maybe make a smaller group or...
So we played around for quite a while, and we tried 5v5 and with various different unit sizes as well, not just 3 units and so forth. And we found that 10v10 was really like a really sweet spot, and it really works. We can go 5v5 at some point. It's possible. It's obviously one of those things that might come along with a new game mode completely, because it would radically change the game. All our maps work on the 10v10 basis, so it'd be a radical departure. But it's not something we can't do. It's just something that would we'd have to have a nice map made for it. It would be a completely separate game mode.
Yeah, I kind of expected that, but it's just nice to sort of see that you guys are like looking into all the different avenues at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. With everything we do, generally at the moment, we want to make sure that what we have is as polished as possible and that the gameplay is right, that it feels as good as we want it to feel. Before we then move on to something else, we don't want to leave too much unfinished business and just rush ahead. We want to make sure that what we have is really solid before we introduce additional game modes or factions and so on. Any other questions? No?
That's all we've got time for, I'm afraid. Thank you very much, Jan. Thank you very much, James, and well played.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming to this session. That is the final session, developer session today. I hope you come back tomorrow. I hope you've had fun. Go out and go wild before the doors close. And thank you very much.